So I've actually helped out hundreds of people be able to get business funding and also 0% funding for 12 to 18 months without showing one single tax return, without showing one profit and loss statement, or showing one W-2. You might be asking yourself, why should I be listening to you? And it's the same exact strategy I've been able to use in order to be able to help out hundreds of people be able to get approved for business funding and also some at 0% interest for 12 to 18 months without showing one single tax return or any type of documentation. So to be honest, guys, the reality is if your business is 2 years or older, almost 70% of those businesses literally get denied for a line of credit, a loan, or any type of funding at all, just simply because they don't have the documentation in place. Whether it's tax returns, whether it's profit and loss statements, they just simply don't have it. So that's exactly the number one reason that most of these businesses actually get denied. Now, if your business is younger than 2 years, 75% of those businesses automatically disqualify for being able to get any type of funding whatsoever. Now, most of the times, whenever you're going ahead and applying for funding, most lenders will actually require documentation because they're not going to go based off of your stated income. They will actually want to be able to see your taxes, your profit and loss statement. And this is the one thing that really kills a lot of people because a lot of business owners, they want to pay as low as tax as possible, but it actually ends up hurting them in the long run. So I'm going to show you guys a different strategy on how you guys can be able to get approved without showing any type of documentation. The way that I look at it, right, is that there's so many different banks out there. So if I go to one bank, right, they ask me for tax returns, documents, profit and loss statements. So how I look at it, right, is that there's so many different banks out there. So if I go to one bank, right, and they're asking me, all right, Abu, we need to be able to see your taxes, your documents, and also all of your profit and loss statements. And now if this one bank is asking me for all these documentation, what stopped me from going directly down the street and going to a bank who's not going to ask for any tax returns, who's not going to ask for any documents? Why would I go ahead and provide the taxes and documentation to this one bank compared to just going down the street? At the end of the day, as a business owner, it just doesn't make sense, right? I also want to be able to apply for funding and get it right away, rather than sitting there and waiting for 2 to 3 weeks for them to go ahead and review any documents. So that's exactly why in this video, I'm going to be breaking down without a single doubt how to be able to actually get 0% funding up to $250,000 without getting any type of documentation, without pulling any tax returns, or showing any type of profit and loss statements. I do need you to stick to the end because if you miss a beat, you might actually be lost. So in this video, really how we're gonna be breaking it down is with 3 simple steps, right? The first step that we have is that we have a 5-point system on how to get any bank to automatically say yes. So you want to be able to walk into a bank confident. And the thing that I see a lot of people with right now is that you'll walk into a bank and you're begging for money. You guys have to understand that banks actually work for you, right? And they actually need customers in order to be able to exist. So you should never walk into a bank begging for money. You should honestly be walking into a bank demanding for money. Because if you knew if the banking system was set up to need a consumer, then you would actually be a lot more confident when walking to a bank. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And so you have the 5-point system, right? That's automatically going to make any single bank literally say yes, right? I'm gonna give you guys a secret bureau game on how to be able to actually apply for funding so you guys can maximize your funding opportunities. And third but not least, what we're gonna be talking about is how to get the exact system that I actually use with my clients and myself, right? In order to be able to get the maximum amount of funding possible. Guys, there is a method to the madness. You can't just randomly apply without knowing exactly what you're doing. There's gonna be some banks that are more inquiry sensitive, so you wanna go ahead and apply for those first before you go ahead and apply to other ones that are a lot less stringent. So with that being said, make sure you stick around to the end of this video. I'm gonna be breaking down everything you guys need to know and don't miss a single beat. But before we do, make sure to subscribe because your boy's trying to get 10K as soon as possible. So all right guys, so every day that you learn about the funding game, especially from these fake gurus and fake influencers, I need you to go ahead and drop it and forget it right now, right? Because there's a lot of different misinformation out there, but really what's important whenever you're applying for funding is to literally go ahead and think like an underwriter. An underwriter is the one that's going to go ahead and approve or deny your application. So you have to go to make sure and put yourself in their shoes because they're ultimately the ones that are going to go ahead and determine your credit application. So with business funding, the most important thing with business funding, right, is to be able to have a strong personal credit. Because at the end of the day, guys, you always need the most amount of funding if you personally guarantee it. Now, with personal guarantees, the difference between that and the EIN, right, is that if you have a brand new business, let's say your business is 2 years or younger. If your business is 2 years or younger, most banks, they're not going to go ahead and trust you in order to be able to apply for funding because the business cannot stand by itself. It hasn't had the right trade lines on there. And also it's not the testament of time. So whenever you walk into a bank, you almost look like a rookie. And honestly, banks do not like rookies whatsoever. I mean, think about it. Who does like a rookie? But for the most part, right, really what we want to do is be able to properly set up our personal profile. So when we do this right, what we really need to be able to do is first make sure that we have the foundation in place. So once we already have the foundation in place, that's ultimately going to be able to help us get approved for anything that we honestly want, right? So you'll see a lot of people, the first thing that I have on here is that is a 700 plus credit score. Now 720, right? So you might see that a lot of people are telling you get a 680, get a 670, even get a 700 credit score, which at the end of the day is totally fine, but it's not going to be able to get you the most optimal funding, because really what you want to do is you want to be a prime borrower. Now look, at the end of the day, guys, a prime borrower is anybody that has a 720 to 740 credit score. So a 680 credit score is just going to get you guys in the game. It's not going to get you guys approved for the highest limits. It's not going to be able to go ahead and get you guys the most amount of funding at all. You really want to be able to get a 720 or a 740. Plus, at the end of the day, if you can be able to go ahead and add a couple of different accounts, just wait a little bit, then go ahead and apply, that's always going to be better for you than just trying to go ahead and rush the process. Because think about it, if you rush the process, yeah, you might be able to get some funding, but you're never going to be able to get the most amount that you would like. So you have to really ask yourself, would you wait 1 to 2 months to be able to get another potentially 40 to 60,000? It's up to you, right? So you really have to start thinking like that as far as how you actually approaching your funding. Now, with the 720 credit score, that's going to really be able to help you guys get as best rates as possible. I know a lot of people, they're like, let me get an 800 credit score, let me get an 850 credit score, which, to be honest, you definitely shoot for 850 credit score. There's nothing wrong with it, but to a certain extent, it just becomes another vanity metric, right? Where you're just kind of telling people, oh, I have an 800 credit score, oh, I have an 850 credit score. Like, to be honest, if you have anything above a 740, you're going to get approved with the same rates that an 800 or 850 credit score would get approved for. And there's really just a cutoff, right? As far as the best rates you'll get. So long as you have a good prime credit score, you will be able to get approved for anything possible. Now afterwards, right, you want to be able to have 5 primary accounts. Now think about it, guys. 5 primary accounts. Now when I say primary, I mean these are not authorized users. These are not any type of trade lines. These are not any type of accounts that aren't yours. So with those 5 primary accounts, those are accounts that are actually yours, whether that be an auto loan, a credit card, or even just a rental account, right? You want to be able to have a good mix of both. Now, I think the day, guys, 5 is the bare minimum. So of course, the more that you have on your account, the more you have on your credit reports, the better off you'll be, because having 5 primary accounts, right, is literally going to be the bare minimum. Anything below 5 accounts is literally considered a thin credit file, and most lenders won't even touch you. So with these 5 private different accounts, right, you have to keep in mind, because this strategy, we're going to be applying for business credit cards, right? So we're going to be applying for 0% business credit cards anywhere for 12 to 18 months. So what you want to be able to do is have comparable credit. Now, really what I mean by that as far as comparable credit is that if you're applying for a credit card and you have a credit card on your profile, you want to be able to have that shown. You don't want to apply for a credit card and have all auto loans or personal loans, because that's not comparable to a credit card. So if you want to get approved for a credit card, what I would honestly do is, let's say you have this, right? This is the foundation. You have 2 credit cards, right? And I want those to have a good limit, right? I want those to have at least $2,500, $3,500 limits, because whenever you apply for these credit cards, instead of them giving you the bare minimum, if you had a $500 credit limit, then they're most likely going to give you $1,000, $2,000. But if you have a $2,500 credit limit or a $3,500 credit limit, lenders are a lot more happy to be able to start you off with a higher amount, possibly even a $10,000, $15,000 credit card. But however, right now, what you really want to do is have 2 different credit cards. After you have 2 different credit cards, what I'll honestly do is have about 3 installment accounts. Now, installment accounts, these can be like personal loans, right? These can be rental accounts. These can be auto loans. And the most important thing is you want to have payment history. So this is all to be able to set up our foundation, because whenever we go and apply for business funding, we're also going to use our personal credit score in order to be able to guarantee it. Now, just because we personally guarantee it is not going to show up on your personal side. And I'll talk about this more in future videos as far as which business credit card to go and avoid. But for right now, what we need to know is that we're setting this all up in order to be able to apply for business funding. So after we have this, and this again, this is the bare minimum, right? We want to have as many positive accounts as possible, right? And so I want you to just keep adding more and more accounts that are really going to help you out. And so that's ultimately going to strengthen your credit profile, because the more relationships that you have, the stronger off your credit score is going to be. So with that being said, right, after we have 5 primary accounts, really what we need to have is 10% utilization, right? So your favorite guru is going to tell you, oh, you need to have a 30% credit utilization, and that's going to be the best thing possible. So the thing is with that, right? So that's absolutely not true, right? Because the thing with 30%, because just 30% is going to be able to help you in keeping your score the same. It's not going to go ahead and drop your credit score at all. but 30% is not going to give you the most optimal funding. Because think about it, if you're using 30% of your credit card, which should be the bare minimum, right? Lenders won't approve you if you have 40, if you have 50%, lenders will automatically just go ahead and deny you. Because they look at it like, how a lot of lenders look at it is that if you're desperate for credit, that means you're living above your means and they don't want to give you any more credit. But it's kind of funny, right? Because when you show them that you don't necessarily use their credit or you don't need their credit, they're going to go ahead and give you more credit. So that's why you want to be able to have a 10% utilization, or to be honest, or lower, right? So we can even have it or lower. And so this is literally just going to open up the most amount of funding possible, because if they see that you're paying your credit on time, you don't necessarily even need a credit card, you're not even using it that much, then they're automatically going to give you a higher limit starting off the bat. So definitely make sure we are below a 10% utilization. And that's really the secret strategy, right? Because 30% is not going to drop your score, but it's not going to help your score at all. So 10% is really where you want to be able to be at, and even below that if you can, because that's going to give you the highest rates possible as far as your funding. All right, guys, so we really went ahead and talked about the bureau game. We talked about what you need to have on your credit report, right? And we're going to go to apply for funding. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about, right, is a secret strategy. Because like I mentioned before, right, you can be able to get 5 to 7 credit cards simply by knowing exactly which bureau they pull from, because then you'll be able to get 2 to 3 hard inquiries per bureau. So with that being said, right, as far as the sequence that matters, right, you really want to be able to have a strategy on how you're applying for funding. So really how I actually do it, right, is that one, I'll go ahead and find, of course, what banks pull from Experian, right? So I'll get a list of banks that pull from Experian, and let's say I get about 5 different banks, right, that pull from Experian. So let's say I get about 5 banks that I know pull from Experian, right? And then afterwards, what I'll do is that I'll go ahead and find, so I'll get 5 different banks that actually pull from Equifax, right? And so this is, again, setting up my sequence strategy, because basically what we're doing is stacking different credit cards, right? And so we want to make sure that when we're stacking different credit cards, so we're going to go and section them off by exactly which credit bureau they're actually pulling from. So we got Experian, we got Equifax, we got TransUnion, right? So really what we want to do is set up Experian with 5 different banks. We want to set up Equifax with 5 different banks. We want to set up TransUnion with 5 different banks, right? And so really with that being said is that being able to make sure that we have these different banks set up and the strategies are really on point. So what we want to do, right, is that first, whenever we're going ahead and applying for credit, is we're going to go ahead and separate them by bureau. So the first thing we're going to do, right, is we're going to go ahead and go with all the Experian banks, right? And so I'll go ahead and list out all of these Experian banks, and basically what I'll do, right, depending on, honestly, what I'd recommend for you guys to do is to be able to go ahead and get you a relationship manager. Anytime you get an automatic approval online, that's literally the bare minimum that they're going to approve you for, right? So really what you want to do instead, right, is leverage relationship managers. These relationship managers actually will be able to go ahead and request your limit for you. You can instead get a $50,000 to $60,000 credit card, which is automatically going to be a lot higher because you're actually requesting that limit. So whenever you're going in and applying for these different accounts, I'm gonna do Experian all on the same day, right? I'm gonna go ahead and get a list of my relationship managers. I'm gonna get a list of different banks that I actually pull from. The ones that I can be able to get a relationship manager with, I'm going ahead and reaching out to them and making sure that they send my application. Now for the other ones, I'm simply gonna go online, open up multiple different browsers and also multiple different tabs, and make sure that I put up all my information at the same time and simply just submit them all simultaneously. So then whenever they actually pull the credit report, they're only going to show one hard inquiry on that bureau. It's going to help you guys avoid the bank seeing multiple different hard inquiries on the same day, as long as you do it together. So after you go ahead and do Experian, right, what you're going to do is do the same thing for Equifax and also TransUnion. So after we go ahead and get our Experian approvals, we'll go ahead and go to Equifax, get 5 different banks, right, apply for them all at the same time. Then of course what we're going to do is go to TransUnion and apply for all 5 different banks. So the beauty of this, right, is since you're applying for different banks and actually pull different credit bureaus, they won't be able to see what you applied for in Equifax, and they won't be able to see what you applied for TransUnion. So each credit bureau is completely separate and different. That's why you want to set it up properly like this. So essentially what you did, right, is you apply for 15 different banks. But so it only looks like you apply for 5 banks per bureau, because you're not going to see the hard inquiries on the other bureaus. And so instead of you guys being able to get $25,000 to $50,000, if you would have just picked 5 banks through all 3 bureaus, $100,000 to $200,000 of business funding. So if you want to know the exact strategy on, I have a whole series on how to acquire business funding, literally from A to Z. So definitely check it out below. And now if you found this video helpful, go ahead and subscribe to this video right now. Don't leave this video. Go ahead and subscribe. Your boy's trying to hit 10K. Best thing you're gonna get for YouTube by far. So go ahead and make sure to hit the subscription. Go ahead and make sure to subscribe. And like always, I'll see you at the top, my boy. I'm out. Let's get it.